I'm Christa Jacobson, headmistress of the Budo, where we teach authentic ninjutsu and classical samurai bujutsu. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the ancient martial arts of the ninja and samurai. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to properly use kata in a reality-based self-defense situation. That's going to be the focus. There are going to be other things that we're going to cover in this particular discussion that relate to that, such as understanding the threat, how to use various skills that pertain to kata in a self-defense situation. Many times I get questions online where people will say, you know, does kata really work in self-defense? And again, usually that's online, because if you train in the dojo or you train in the curriculum, you would understand the purpose behind training in kata. But many times you have people that just don't train in the arts and they're just kind of picking up information here or there online, and they don't really understand what the purpose of the kata is and how you can utilize it within self-defense. So we're going to be talking about that, but attached to that question is they usually follow that question up with, because when they see someone that looks like a boxer or a kickboxer or MMA, they believe that to be more of a self-defense situation, when those skills are applicable, but it's in a completely different realm. So this video, although it is a strong focus on how to use kata in a self-defense situation, also going to be talking about how you would use the skills that you do derive from randori, or sparring and grappling and kickboxing, and how those skills are applicable to a self-defense situation as well. Okay, so this is kind of one of those deals where it's almost like looking at the different levels of power, the different levels of threat, the different levels of violence. Now, before I begin, I always give a shout out to all of my new viewers. So if you guys are watching and this is the first video that you guys have seen of me, my name is Christa Jacobson. I am the headmistress of the Budo, which means School of the Warrior Way. We teach koryu ninjutsu and koryu bujutsu, so the ancient martial arts of the ninja and samurai. This organization does have other areas of focus, such as reality-based self-defense, weapons training and tactics, survival skills, concealed carry, martial arts theory, thought and philosophy, martial arts conditioning. If any of those topics interest you at all, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the bell. That way you guys can keep up with everything that I'm doing. I do post 2 to 3 videos a week, so if you're interested in those topics, like I said, subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and keep up with what we're doing. One of the things that people tend to lose track on is the reality of the threat. And what I mean by that is we always most martial artists train against another martial artist. They train against someone who's trained or trained with someone that knows this particular technique or this particular method of training, or this is how you do this punch, or this is the attack to the kata. It's a preset motion. So most martial artists train in said martial art. However, the majority of people that are going to be attacking you on the street is not a martial artist. The majority of people who attack you on the street are not trained in martial arts. They're not trained in combat. They are a professional at violence. That's what they do. They are violent. They're bringing violence, and they're going to use violence to justify what it is that they want. Whether it's assault, whether it's theft, robbery, whatever it is, they're using violence to achieve their objective. But most of them are not trained in martial arts, and if they are, they're not trained very much. They're trained at a very low level. So, and that's again, that we say reality because that is the reality. That is the most probable situation. Someone who's not highly trained in knife fighting or firearms or hand-to-hand combat will come at you with a knife or a firearm or whatever to put violence and pressure and intimidation on you to achieve a specific objective. Ironically, martial artists train hours and hours every single week to go up against someone who doesn't train at all. So put that in perspective, because that is a very real thing, okay? So we have to understand the threat, okay? So when you guys are doing boxing, kickboxing, MMA, those things are great, but those are great fighting arts that fight against the same art, people who are highly trained. In a reality-based self-defense situation, the chances of you stepping back and doing your kazami, gyaku, mawashigiri, or jab, cross, roundhouse type of a technique, things like that, going to be fairly rare. And that's just because of distancing. The distance is so close. You're not in the same distance as you are in boxing. In boxing and kickboxing, you create distance, you exchange blows, blah, blah, blah. That's not quite the way a self-defense situation works. So now we have to talk about way a self-defense situation would work on an attack, and how the different levels of violence change depending on the situation. Now, I want to say that every violent encounter is massively different, so you should be training in every method of self-defense you can within each individual situation. Here at the Budo Dikai, we cover every area possible, but that doesn't mean all schools do. Most schools just teach boxing or kickboxing, or they deem self-defense as against a right grab, do this. But that's not what self-defense is, and that not all fighting techniques are going to be applicable in a survival / self-defense situation. So you're going to get somebody that's very violent, that's a criminal, has no problem breaking the law. They're going to use whatever tools necessary, whether it's a stick, a club, an edged weapon, firearm, whatever. They're going to make a threat on you. Now, what that means is when they've made this particular threat, you have to know from the jump that means that you've now lost in the very first stage of your self-defense training. And what I mean by that is the number one skill that you're going to have in self-defense is situational awareness. Now, if you guys have not watched my videos on situational awareness, it's in my Goshin Jutsu or self-defense playlist. Make sure that you guys go back and watch those. I believe I've got part 1, part 2, and probably part 3. But I definitely talk a lot about situational awareness. You need to understand the environment, understand your element, know where the threats are. You need to understand the difference between perception and process and plan and all these different things. Remember, perception is based on perspective, so you need to understand the threat. Where are you? Where are the people at? Don't put yourself in a stupid situation. You have to understand the area. So if you've had a surprise attack put on you, at this point, that means your situational awareness skills has failed. You did not recognize the threat, because if you would have recognized the threat, you could have positioned yourself differently. You could have evaded, you could have walked away, you could have gotten your car, whatever it is. So if the threat has been made, the first key to self-defense being situational awareness and understanding your environment, you have now failed in the first aspect of understanding true self-defense. So the second thing that happens once you've now failed at situational awareness, there's now a threat in front of you. The next thing that happens is they're going to present you with a threat, meaning they're going to say something. If they wanted to, end you, whether it's just knifing you or shooting at you or whatever it is, and they would have done that already. Generally, they're going to walk up and say, give me your purse, give me your wallet, do this, give me your car, whatever the threat is. But there's going to be a threat, okay? There's going to be a threat. At that point, that's when you need to start understanding Ninjutsu or evasion techniques. Now, primarily, we get the Ninjutsu from the Tenshijin Ryaku no Maki, and we get various different evasion techniques from the Tentan Jupo, the Chitan Jupo, and the Jintan Jupo, right? Now, each one of those different sections of the Tenshijin teaches evasion techniques, and depending on the situation and the environment. So when you look at the second aspect of understanding the threat, the first part is situational awareness. The second aspect, or if you will, the second gate that you're kind of walking through here, is that now the threat has been made. Now, this threat, you've not made physical contact as of yet. And that's an important part, because once physical contact is made, that's when you're going through your checks and balances and what you can do, what you can't do, and what you do against various attacks. But this is where the situation has happened, where now there's a threat. They've got, an edged weapon, a firearm, they have whatever the situation is, and they're saying, give me your purse, give me your wallet, give me your car, or whatever the situation is. This is where you have to utilize that sets of skills of Ninjutsu. So now you can use lots of tools for this as well, whether that's using various different like powders or metsubushi, or modern day would be some sort of like pepper spray or something like that. Because there hasn't been a threat made, there's a specific distance that you're at, and you can utilize those things in that particular distance. I don't think up close and personal is the time to be using pepper spray and mace. You don't want to, just like Metsubushi, you don't want to throw or distribute that particular type of tool, and then it comes back and hurting you. So make sure that you position yourself in a certain place where the wind is working for you, not against you, and you're at the correct distance to be able to use that particular weapon or tool. But if the distance closes and now you've already passed through the first gate of your situational awareness, did not work. Second gate is you didn't use effective evasion skills to create more distance, to get in your car, to lock the door, to be able to safely get away. to create enough distance to where the particular attacker doesn't want to attack you anymore. That doesn't happen. So now you're moving into the third aspect of the threat. And once you've now walked into the third gate and you've got into the third level of violence, what this comes down to is now there's been a physical attack. They've grabbed you, they've attempted to use a edged weapon, or they've pulled the firearm. They're up close and personal. You can touch them. It's a very tactile situation. They're trying to punch, grab, grapple, throw you to the ground, drag you into their car, whatever the situation is. This is the point where now Kata sits in. You have one time to do a technique. Now there's a saying that we hear primarily in karate. It's like iken hisatsu, or that, one strike, one kill type situation. But it's more of a mentality than it is a technique. It's understanding that in this one moment, right now, they're going to do this and I'm going to do this. It is a philosophy of you saying, I'm putting your ass on the ground now. That's what that is. So you have to be able to recognize when they do a right grab or a left grab or a two-hand grab or a right push or a left push or a two-hand push, or they come at you with this angle of a stick attack or this angle of a edged weapon, or they step in with a firearm, or whatever the situation is. Your martial arts training, you should have been trained in various kata to be able to apply in that situation. So you have to know which technique to do in that situation. If you effectively pull off the technique that you have been trained to do, the situation should be over. Now, if that doesn't work, let's say someone's hypothetical for some of you guys that train here at the Budo or other Ninpo organizations or whatever. Let's say someone comes in with a grab and they decide to pull some sort of an edged weapon or something like that, and you immediately off step, shift the body, counter grab, and then move into like a mote gyaku or something along those lines. I'm trying to paint a picture for some of you guys who can follow and along with terminology, whether it's mote gyaku, ura gyaku, whatever, right? And you're angling yourself away from the edged weapon to take them down, break balance, break structure, etc. So let's just say that for this particular talk today and discussion, the technique, you want to apply the technique and you failed at the technique. Now notice that I keep saying the term you failed. And the reason I say you failed is because the techniques themselves and the steps themselves do not fail. The individual fails, not the technique, not the art. That's the way it usually is. It's not the art that's bad, it's the individual that's not effective and efficient at the art. So if you fail at situational awareness, you did not see the attacker in the element at the time that he presented himself to you. If the individual throws an attack at you, then you failed at your evasion techniques to create the distance, to evade, to get yourself to safety before the physical altercation took place, to where the physical threat has then been made. If the physical threat has been made, again, regardless of the technique, again, we used a grab. If you're going to use a grab and you're going to do a mote gyaku or whatever to angle your body off, break structure, etc., if you fail at executing that particular technique, now we have now disengaged. So if you have engaged and disengaged, the third gate is engaged. You missed on the situation and the environment. You missed on evasion to create distance. They then make the threat, which now you guys have engaged. There's a physical engagement, and you guys are now going to get going with it, right? At that point, you missed on doing the technique that you need to do to finish the attacker in the situation. So now you're in the third stage, and once you've disengaged, you try to do a wrist lock, you try to do whatever kata or waza, whether you're studying Kokoru Kenpo, so the Goshin Waza that we teach, or whatever it is. Are they going for a grab, and maybe you decide to use some of the techniques we see in Ninpo Taijutsu, right? So the Santo Tanko no Kata, or whatever it is that we're doing, right? And you messed the technique up. Now you've disengaged. That guy knows you're not backing down. That guy knows you're trained. Understand? So now when they come at you, it's going to be very fast, very quick, very violent. They're going to swing that knife around, or they're going to come at you, whatever. This is the situation where you start seeing that, okay, now you both are in a fighting stance. See, previous to all of this, you yourself is not in a fighting stance like you would see in boxing, kickboxing, or MMA. You're in a natural position. She's in. But now that you've already, you missed on doing the particular kata and you messed that up, now you have to assume a fighting position. And once you assume a fighting position and you're this, they're going to assume the same thing. Now your kumite skills is where those take into place. So you have to start doing various other techniques to then go through the different levels of Goshin Jutsu. Again, whether it's breaking structure, breaking balance, breaking vision, all of the things that we talk about with the Goshin Sanpo. So when people say kata doesn't work, it does work. It's just what ends up happening is you have people who are not trained in the martial arts. So this is what happens when you're only trained with your fists. The only thing you know is how to punch somebody, and that's going to be the answer to your problem. You're walking to you're cocky, you're arrogant, you're bigger and badder than everybody else. You're walking to your car, and you don't give a shit about situational awareness. You're walking to your car. Someone walks up to you and said, hey, give me your wallet. And you just turn around like, F you and da-da-da, cuss them out. And then you just start punching. And then all of a sudden they pull a firearm, and, you may be a boxing champion, but you're not going to outbox a gun. What? Because your only answer is a hammer. If your only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, the only thing you can use in your self-defense repertoire is a hammer. That's it. That's not the only answer. So you want to be highly skilled. So although, yes, there are times where quote-unquote boxing, kickboxing, MMA can happen, and you can use those skills, the majority of street self-defense, and we're talking about self-defense situations, someone walking up to attack you. We're not talking about street fighting where you have two ignorant people just trying to fight each other on the street. At my age, if you're my age and you're still trying to pick a fight with someone in the backyard, well then you can't fix stupid. So do whatever it is that you feel is best for you. But if you're training for self-defense to protect yourself, the people that you love, you have to understand the various methods of violence. You have to understand that there is a process that happens. It doesn't just happen. If someone wanted to just off you, then they'd off you. When you're going through a self-defense situation and someone's trying to pick a fight with you, they usually walk up and they push you. They go, hey, come here, wuss, or they don't use the word wuss, but they, you know what I mean? They would say more aggressive terminology, I guess. But when they do that, if they wanted to punch you, they'd punch you. If they wanted to just, knife you, they'd knife you. The only reason they're walking up and looking at you all funny and pushing you in the chest and say, you're a puss and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other, is because they're not sure they can kick your ass. They're doing it to intimidate you. All animals do it. We are animals. We thrive off of understanding energy and going with the energy. You got two dogs and they growl at each other and they get the hair up and they're looking at each other, trying to intimidate each other, feel each other out. Same thing here. They're going to, come here, wuss, what are you doing? Blah, 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 I'm going to kick your ass and blah, blah, blah. And they're going to see if you're going to cower down. Don't. Just don't. You look at them and you make sure that you have no expression on your face. You don't look fearful. You don't look scared. Don't look happy, like you're the Joker or something, but you just have no expression and you just stare. And then at this point, this is when you have to start, okay, I messed up on situational awareness. You may know that this guy wants to come kick your ass or whatever. You are now in that situation. So you didn't read the environment well. He comes in with a push. And then after he pushes you, he says, I'm kicking your ass, puss. Okay, fine. If he pushed you and you did not capitalize on any technique that you know against a two-handed push, you've now messed up, because not only did you miss on situational awareness, you missed on the two-hand push, and now he's making verbal threats to you. So now you have to start thinking, what's next? Maybe you talk yourself, you try to use words and talk yourself out of the situation, calm down, defuse the situation, which is what you should be doing, by the way. You should not be trying to fight anybody. You try to defuse the situation. That guy's not having it. At this point, here comes another attack, and you see it coming. You've got to do the correct kata or waza that you're trained against that technique. Now, no kata or waza is going to work exactly. So you have to understand how the fundamentals and principles and philosophies of the technique is teaching, so you can apply those principles to the fight. You're not going to walk through a kata. That's not how you use kata. You take the principles, philosophies, and strategies of the kata and apply them to the situation as needed. That's what kata is for, is to teach this aspect. Once you miss on that, it's a swing and a miss. We're at strike 3. Now it's time to, they notice that you did a technique. They see that you tried to do a technique didn't work, so now they're getting into this position, and so do you. So now you have to start, instead of working from Shizen, where if you're in Shizen, you do have the element of surprise on your side. But now, instead of working from Shizen and utilizing the element of surprise, now you have to work from a fighting position, and so do they. You don't get element of surprise. They know that you're going to fight. Again, now you can start using other tools and tricks that can help, whether it's concealed carry, whether it's using the powders like, pepper spray, like maybe you're in this position and as they get close and they throw a punch, you parry the punch and spray them in the face, things like that, whether it's edged weapons, whatever it is. You start working around a situation where he don't know the environment, so you got backing him into a situation where maybe his back's in a corner. You make sure that the sun is to your back so he doesn't get a good visual on everything that you're doing. There's so many things that we talk about what's involved in self-defense, and it's so dynamic, so you have to understand every aspect. It's not just against a grab, do this. That's not self-defense. That's damn technique. That just because they paint it off as self-defense, that's not true Goshin Jutsu. So when people say, the only way you're going to be good at self-defense is doing kickboxing, I highly disagree. There's too many things that happen before you get into a fighting position. However, if you are not trained enough to be able to handle and withstand all the things that lead you that position, you're going to have to punch and kick. And that's why sparring and kumite and randori and grappling is a good thing. But I want to throw this at you too before I let you guys go. Sparring and kumite and randori and all that kind of stuff and grappling, and those are not made to make you physically better. People tend to think that sparring is like this physical, it makes you physically stronger. It doesn't make you physically stronger. That's ridiculous. You're punching and kicking things. Sparring isn't any more physical exertion than punching and kicking bags. It's more dynamic, but you're not using your muscles anymore when you're punching and kicking a person. You're punching and kicking bags. So sparring is not meant to be. Unfortunately, we just have so many martial art teachers that they don't know what they're doing. So they pan things off in a realm that's just incorrect, and then make students not get the full information. But sparring is meant for your mind. It is a mental drill. That's what it is. The word randori means chaos talking. It basically means that you are going to do something in a situation where you do not understand what's going to happen. In a kata, it's a form. So they do this, you do this. A waza is a technique. This situation, do this. Randori is, I'm in a situation that's violent. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what they're going to do, but I have to figure out a way to get the technique to overcome the situation. Sparring is almost like playing whack-a-mole with your hands and feet. They do this, there's the open, bang. They throw a jab cross, you parry it off, and there's an opening, bang. They throw a kick, double blend, come back, bang. They do this, or you're fighting, boom, boom, boom. Now all of a sudden you kick, you create distance. They pull, some sort of like lethal threat, again, edged weapon or firearm, and now you're like, if you're not carrying concealed carry, then you're like, oh shit, evasion skills. Now you got to create distance and get the hell out of dodge. So sparring is a way to train your mind to react quickly and efficiently and effectively in an intense, violent situation. You do not control it. All the other techniques are done in a way where you know what the technique is and you're doing something against it. It sharpens the mind. It makes you think quicker, and that's where we come down to critical thinking skills. So even if you're doing sparring in a very controlled situation where it's just kickboxing, you're just punching and kicking, no knives, no multiple attackers, no firearms, none of that kind of stuff. It's just that. It still helps you better understand how to sharpen your mind to be more efficient and effective in a violent situation that you cannot control. So sparring does have a lot of benefits, and that's why I'm so highly supportive of doing randori and sparring and grappling, because it forces the students to have to think and come up with a solution in a situation that they don't know what's happening, and they have to overcome the situation. And that is a most integral, important aspect of martial arts. The reality is the techniques that you would use in sparring is probably not the techniques that you would use in self-defense. Because of the rules, because of the situation, and because of the distance, it's just not going to happen. So sparring is more for training the mind to think quicker in a situation, more so than training muscle memory on what you do in a self-defense situation. Muscle memory should come from the Kata and Waza to be able to recognize the attack that we see in the third level of violence and then effectively take that person out before getting to the technique where you both have to put up your dukes. So keep that in mind, guys. The person that's going to attack you, it's probably not highly trained in martial arts. They're just very violent and they have no problem using things of lethal force, okay? And they have no problem using the environment to their advantage, whether it's to terrain, multiple attackers, or whatever the situation is. So keep that in mind, okay? The guy that's going to attack you is not probably a professional fighter, okay? There's one. Two, make sure that you understand that there is a succession of things that happen before you get to this point. Usually, and again, we talk about reality-based, and that's we're talking about what is more highly probable, not what's possible. Again, it's possible if I buy a lottery ticket, it's possible I win the lottery. It's not very probable. So you want your skills to be more probable than possible, which is why we say reality-based self-defense rather than self-defense, because there are teachers who don't know what they're doing that teach self-defense, and they teach you guys to do spin kicks and show your back to your opponent and all that kind of stupid shit. And you should not be doing that. You never give a target or weakness to your opponent. Why? Because they are very violent and they're good at violence. That's the attacker, right? So you have to understand the stages. You got to understand the attacker. You got to be highly trained in understanding the environment, situational awareness, evasion skills, tanjutsu that we get from the Tenchi-jin or Ryaku no Maki. You got to be good at Kata and Waza on every attack that's possibly coming at you and all the different variations or henka of those particular attacks. And if all that fails, you have to be able to have the mindset, the willpower, and the bushi ki or samurai spirit to put up your dukes and overcome the adversity and the opponent that's in front of you. That is how you overcome and prevail in a self-defense situation. So this is my message for you guys today. Thank you guys very much for your love and support. If you guys are interested in training in authentic ninjutsu and classical samurai bujutsu, please check out my website at www.budo-ninjutsu.com. There you guys can see the 7 traditions, the different areas of training, and the philosophies that we teach. If you don't live next to one of our schools, you guys can always join the Budo online ninjutsu dojo, and you guys can start your training today. So thank you guys very much for your love and support. I deeply appreciate it. And until next time, take care, be safe, and good luck in your journey of Budo.